Imagine finding out that something you do every single day, something you do specifically because you are trying to protect your health, something your doctor encouraged you to do, is quietly and systematically destroying your joints, overloading your cardiovascular system, and accelerating the very physical decline you are working so hard to prevent. Does that sound extreme? Unfortunately, it is not. Every week, people arrive after months of consistent walking, 30 minutes a day, sometimes more. Good intentions, real commitment, and they are not getting better. They are getting worse. Knee pain that was not there 6 months ago, chronic fatigue in the lower legs by early afternoon, a nagging ache in the lower back that greets them every single morning. The first question is always the same. How exactly are you walking? And that is where everything changes. Because the problem is almost never that people walk too little. The problem is that they walk wrong. And wrong walking is not simply wasted effort. It is active damage to the joints, to the spine, to the cardiovascular system, and to the tissues that are supposed to benefit while you move. After more than 15 years of working with older adults on exactly this problem, the same picture appears again and again. In the next 14 minutes, I am going to show you exactly which 7 mistakes are doing the most damage, why each one is specifically more dangerous after the age of 50, and what to do differently starting with your very next walk. This information could genuinely protect the health of someone you love, including yourself. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now with just your age. Nothing else, just the number. I want to see who is watching this because the risk level of each of these mistakes is very different depending on whether you are 55, 65, or 75. The same error your body forgave at 40 produces real measurable damage at 65. And if you have noticed knee pain, lower back stiffness, or unusual fatigue specifically after your walks, not during, but after, add the word after to your comment. That pattern tells me something specific about which mistake is hitting you hardest. Here is a scene that plays out constantly. A 62-year-old decides to take their health seriously. They start walking every morning, 30 minutes, consistent, committed. 3 months later, they are sitting in a clinic with a knee that swells by midday and a lower backache that was not there before. The question they ask is a reasonable one. How can something this natural be making things worse? The answer is not in the walking, it is in the how. They started too fast, their shoulders were rounded forward, head jutting out, eyes fixed at the pavement, arms pinned to their sides, one long walk on the weekend, nothing for 5 days afterward, and when they finished, they drank nothing, stretched nothing, and sat down immediately. Each of those choices looks harmless alone. Together, they form a pattern that produces exactly the outcome they were trying to avoid. Research into walking mechanics in adults over 50 is clear. Correct technique produces measurably different physiological outcomes, better cardiovascular adaptation, lower joint loading, stronger muscle activation, and significantly reduced injury risk. That gap between technique and outcome is something most people are never told. It is also why it never makes it into a standard appointment. Now, if you are someone who values understanding the why behind the numbers, not just being told what to do. What I am about to explain is going to give you a completely different framework for thinking about movement as you age. Your body at 55 is not simply an older version of your body at 35. It is physiologically different in 4 specific ways that change everything about how you need to move. First, sarcopenia. After 50, the body loses roughly 1 to 2% of total muscle mass every single year. Over 10 years, that is 15 to 20% of the muscle that stabilizes joints, regulates blood sugar, holds posture upright, and maintains balance during movement. Lose enough of it, and everything downstream begins to fall apart. Second, cartilage starvation. Cartilage at the ends of the bones has no blood supply of its own. It receives nutrition exclusively through movement, through the compression and release of synovial fluid, the lubricating liquid inside the joint. Move correctly and that fluid nourishes the cartilage. Move wrong or stop moving and cartilage starves, thins, loses elasticity. That breakdown is what becomes osteoarthritis. It is not inevitable, but wrong habits accelerate it reliably. Third, metabolic slowdown. The basal metabolic rate drops by approximately 2 to 3% every 10 years after 50. The exact same lifestyle that kept weight stable at 35 will cause weight gain at 55, not from personal failure, from documented, measurable physiology. Fourth, circulatory decline. Blood vessel walls gradually lose elasticity, peripheral circulation, flow to the legs, feet, and small vessels, deteriorates. This is why so many people over 50 notice cold feet, nighttime cramps, and that heavy, tired feeling in the lower legs by evening. Walking, done correctly, addresses all 4 of these systems at once, but only when the technique is right. These are not small differences. They are fundamental changes that demand a completely different approach. Mistake number 7, the assumption is that walking is gentle enough that recovery is irrelevant. That assumption is wrong. wrong. And after 50, meaningfully more wrong. Start with hydration. Muscle tissue is 70 to 75% water. Even mild dehydration, a drop of just 1 to 2% in the body's fluid stores, measurably reduces muscle elasticity, slows recovery, and raises the risk of cramping. A glass of water after every walk is not optional. It is basic physiology. Then stretching. During walking, muscles work in a repeated shortening pattern. Without lengthening afterward, they stay slightly shortened. Over weeks, this accumulates. The calves tighten, the hamstrings stiffen, the lower back loses range of motion. That persistent morning stiffness people attribute to aging is frequently the result of muscles never return to their resting length. 5 minutes of gentle stretching after every walk prevents this entirely. And rest days, the body does not adapt during exercise. It adapts during recovery. That is when muscle fibers reinforce, joints remodel, and the cardiovascular system restructures to handle new demands. 1 to 2 rest days per week is not laziness, it is the correct protocol. Think of your walk as one part of a system. Movement, water, stretching, rest. Remove any one component, and the system underperforms. Mistake number 6 did not exist 20 years ago. Today, it is one of the most widespread patterns seen in older adults who walk for their health, and it undermines that effort in 3 compounding ways. The first is postural. When you look at a phone held in front of you or down by your waist, your head tilts downward. An adult head weighs approximately 5 kilograms. In neutral alignment, that load is distributed correctly across the spine. Tilt the head down by just 3 to 4 centimeters, and the effective load on the cervical spine multiplies by 3 to 4 times. That is 15 to 20 kilograms carried continuously by your neck and upper back for the entire walk. The second is safety. After 50, the vestibular system, the balance and orientation mechanism in the inner ear, begins operating with gradually less precision in space, also fades. Your brain increasingly relies on visual input to maintain stability. When your eyes are on a screen, that input disappears. Uneven pavement, curbs, wet surfaces, sudden drops, all invisible. A fall after 60 is not a minor inconvenience. A hip fracture in someone over 65 means surgery, extended immobilization, and a rehabilitation process that too often marks a permanent shift in independence. The third is neurological, walking while genuinely paying attention to your surroundings, your breath, the ground under your feet. That is documented, active training for attention, coordination, and spatial awareness. When you are watching a screen, your legs are moving, but your brain is elsewhere. That benefit disappears entirely. The fix is simple. Phone in your pocket for the entire walk. Earbuds for audio are fine. Screen stays out of your hands. Mistake number 5. Most people pin their arms to their sides, let them hang loosely, or push them into pockets. It feels comfortable. In reality, it removes a meaningful portion of walking's benefit and quietly loads the lower spine with every step. Walking is not leg work alone. It is a whole body cross pattern movement. When the left leg steps forward, the right arm naturally swings forward and vice versa. This contralateral coordination is hardwired into the nervous system. It distributes load across the spine symmetrically and reduces rotational forces on the trunk. When the arms stay still, the spine compensates by over-rotating in the lumbar region with every stride. For anyone with lower back sensitivity, that compensation is a direct trigger. The second consequence is metabolic. Proper arm swing recruits the muscles of the shoulders, chest, and upper back. A significantly larger total muscle mass becomes active. More active muscle means higher caloric expenditure, better circulation, and more elevated metabolism from the exact same distance walked. The correction requires nothing except awareness. Bend the elbows to roughly 90 degrees, allow them to swing forward and back, opposite to the leg movement. No exaggerated pumping, just stop holding them still. Within a few walks, the difference in rhythm and energy is immediately apparent. Mistake number 4 follows a recognizable pattern. The week is busy, one long walk gets saved for the weekend, an hour, sometimes more. The person returns home tired, feels virtuous, and considers the requirement fulfilled. From a physiological standpoint, this is fundamentally wrong. The body does not respond to isolated events. It responds to repeated, consistent signals. Every time you walk, your body receives a message. Physical activity is the norm. In response to that repeated message, the heart becomes more efficient, blood vessels adapt, muscles strengthen, and metabolism stays elevated. This process, training adaptation, only occurs when the signal repeats frequently enough. One walk per week is too weak a signal. The body never fully adapts. Worse, a single long walk after days of complete inactivity is a stress event for unprepared muscles. They hurt the next day. People draw the wrong conclusion that their joints are too damaged, that walking is not for them. In most cases, the joints are fine. The loading pattern is wrong. The evidence is consistent. 20 to 30 minutes of walking on most days of the week is a minimum effective dose for cardiovascular benefit. The regimen that measurably reduces risk of heart attack, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Not one long Sunday walk, 5 to 6 shorter sessions distributed across the week. If that feels like too much right now, start with 3 days at 10 minutes. Add 5 minutes every 2 weeks. Mistake number 3 is the one people pay least attention to, and its consequences travel all the way from the foot up to the spine. 2 changes happen with age that make footwear critically important. First, the fat pads on the soles of the feet gradually thin out. Those pads were natural shock absorbers that soften the impact of the heel striking the ground with every step. When that cushioning diminishes, the shoes must compensate. If they do not, every ground impact travels straight up the chain, ankle, knee, hip, lower back, unabsorbed. Multiply that by thousands of steps in a 30-minute walk, and you have a mechanical explanation for joint pain that has nothing to do with age. Second, the muscles and ligaments of the foot weaken with time. The arch can begin to collapse, acquired flat foot. A collapsed arch changes the load angle on the knee, shifts the axis of the hip, and increases spinal stress. Adequate arch support in a walking shoe can meaningfully slow that process. What you need is clear cushioning in both the heel and forefoot. Arch support that follows the natural shape of the foot, a flexible sole at the forefoot, so the foot can bend naturally through the heel to toe roll. One detail most people miss entirely. The outside of a walking shoe may look fine after 2 years of use, but the midsole, the cushioning layer between the outer rubber and inner lining, loses its shock-absorbing properties long before any visible wear appears on the surface. If you walk regularly, replace your walking shoes approximately every 12 months. That is not a commercial recommendation. That is joint protection. Mistake number 2 is visible on almost every sidewalk. Head jutting forward, shoulders rounded inward, eyes fixed at the pavement. It looks like fatigue. It is actually the posture of someone systematically damaging their neck, compressing their lungs, and misloading every joint below the waist. Here is the mechanics. An adult head weighs approximately 5 kilograms. In neutral alignment directly above the spine, the neck carries that load correctly. When the head shifts forward by just 3 to 4 centimeters, the effective load on the cervical spine multiplies by 3 times. At 5 to 6 centimeters of forward shift, common in people who spend hours at a screen, the load multiplies to 4 or 5 times. Instead of 5 kilograms, the neck and upper back are now holding 20 to 25 kilograms continuously throughout the entire walk. The headache that follows is not age, it is mechanics. The second consequence is respiratory. When the chest is compressed and shoulders roll forward, the diaphragm cannot fully descend. The lungs cannot fully expand. Breathing becomes shallow. The body receives less oxygen than the muscles and brain require. A 30-minute walk leaves you feeling like you walked for an hour. People blame poor fitness. The actual cause is posture reducing respiratory efficiency. The third consequence cascades downward. Head forward forces the lower back to compensate with an exaggerated arch. The pelvis tilts. The knees operate at the wrong angle. Joint loading increases not from age, but from one correctable mechanical error. The fix is not a military stance. Picture a thin thread attached to the top of your head pulling gently upward. The spine decompresses, shoulders ease back to their natural position, eyes level with the horizon, chest open. In that alignment, your lungs work at full capacity, your neck carries its correct load, and your joints operate at the angles they were designed for. Mistake number 1, the most common and the most misunderstood. People step outside and immediately hit full pace. The logic seems sound. Why lose time warming up when the goal is to move? Your body is not a machine with an ignition key. It is a biological system that requires a transition between rest and full activity. That transition cannot be skipped without consequences. Your muscles are cold. Cold muscle fibers are less elastic. Less elasticity means a higher risk of microtears, tiny rips in muscle tissue that individually produce no symptoms but accumulate over weeks and months into chronic pain that feels by that point indistinguishable from age-related decline. Your joints are not yet lubricated. Synovial fluid pools in certain areas of the joint cavity during rest. To spread evenly and form the protective film that prevents cartilage on cartilage contact, contact, it needs several minutes of slow, gradual movement. Start fast and that film is not formed. Your cartilage is running dry against itself from the very first stride. Your cardiovascular system has not adapted. When intensity rises too quickly, heart rate spikes and blood pressure jumps more sharply than necessary. After 50, when vessel walls are already less elastic, that sudden spike places unnecessary stress on the vascular system with every fast start. The solution costs exactly 0 additional time. Spend the first 3 to 5 minutes of every walk at a deliberately slow pace, almost leisurely. That is your warm-up. It is not a tradition for athletes. It is a physiological requirement for anyone who wants to walk without producing damage that looks 6 months later, like inevitable aging. After 5 minutes, the joints are lubricated, the muscles are warm, and the heart has settled into a working rhythm. Now the pace can increase. Now the walk does what it was supposed to do. Here's what matters before the action steps. All 7 of these mistakes carry a different level of risk depending on your age. The damage from poor posture, worn out shoes, and skipped recovery is 2 to 3 times more serious at 60 than it was at 35. Because the resilience of joints, blood vessels, and muscles decreases over time, the same error your body forgave silently at 30 will produce real symptoms at 60. That is not a reason for alarm. It is a reason to take technique seriously. And every one of these mistakes is correctable. None of them requires equipment, a gym, a therapist, or a prescription. They require awareness and one decision to do one thing differently today. You have been walking with the right intention. The technique simply needed adjustment. That gap is entirely bridgeable, starting with your very next walk. Here's exactly what to do after this video. 7 actions, 1 for each mistake. 1, slow start every time, the first 3 to 5 minutes of every walk at a deliberately slow pace. No exceptions. You are not losing time. You are protecting the joints and vessels that make everything else possible. 2, check your posture right now. Stand up, allow your spine to decompress upward, release your shoulders back to their natural position. Eyes level, chin parallel to the ground. Memorize that feeling. Reproduce it every time you walk out the door. 3, examine your walking shoes. If the cushioning feels flat and compressed, or if you have worn them for more than 12 months, replace them. One of the simplest and highest return investments available for joint health. 4, distribute your walking across the week, 20 to 30 minutes, 5 to 6 days. If that is too much right now, start with 3 days at 10 minutes. Add 5 minutes every 2 weeks. Gradual is sustainable. 5, let your arms move. Elbows at 90 degrees, swinging forward and back in natural rhythm opposite to the leg movement. Take them out of your pocket. 6, phone in your pocket for the entire walk, no exceptions. Earbuds for audio are fine. Screen stays out of your hands. 7, after every walk, 1 glass of water and 5 minutes of stretching, calves, hamstrings, lower back. That is the margin between accumulated stiffness and functional flexibility over the next 12 months. Drop a comment right now saying AWRA. If this gave you something genuinely useful, if it connected something that has been happening to your body that nobody had explained before, I want to see that word. It tells me this information is reaching the people who need it. Now, think of one specific person in your life, a parent, a partner, a close friend, someone who walks regularly for their health and has never heard any of this. Someone who might be coming home from their morning walk with a knee that hurts more than it did 6 months ago and has been telling themselves that it's just age. Send them this video right now, not later, right now. That single action might genuinely change what the next 5 years look like for them. Subscribe to this channel. The goal here is simple, to bring you honest, research-grounded health information that most people only find out about after something has already gone wrong. You deserve to know it before that happens. In the next video, I am going to cover 5 morning habits that quietly increase inflammation throughout the body after 60, including one that appears on every healthy aging list online, but that the research now tells a very different story about. You will not want to miss it. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Any concerns about joint pain, cardiovascular health, or exercise tolerance should be discussed with a qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your physical activity routine. The information presented reflects current published research, but should not replace a thorough evaluation by a licensed medical professional.